Good. We'll begin this public meeting at 5:45 p.m. Does any council member have a declaration of pecuniary interest of the general nature thereof? If so, please declare it. I see none. So the purpose of this meeting is a statutory public meeting regarding the proposed community improvement plan. So I will call upon our staff member, Lindsay, to take us through the preamble, and then we'll go from there.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you, notice of this public meeting was provided in accordance with the Planning Act. As this is a township-wide application, notice was published in the Brockville this week and the Kingston this week, newspapers on November 4th, 2023. Courtesy notice was provided on the township website as well as through the township social media channels. To date, 4 pieces of correspondence have been received in response to the draft CIP report. This includes 1 piece of correspondence from the public and 3 from external agencies. The correspondence is attached to the staff report as Exhibit B. Pardon me. For interested members of the public in attendance this evening, if you would like to be notified of future meetings and decisions regarding the proposed CIP and have not already registered to be on our mailing list, there is a sign-up sheet out in the lobby that you can complete this evening before you leave. And it's important to note that this is strictly a public meeting this evening and no recommendations on the CIP are being considered. Subject to input from the public, council, and additional external agencies, this recommended CIP will be brought forward to a future meeting of council. And Mr. McPhail from Republic Urbanism is in attendance virtually this evening to provide a presentation with respect to the draft CIP report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we will go to our consultant, Mr. McPhail, who is on the screen. And I'm assuming Mr. McPhail has a presentation. So if you'd like to share your screen with us, and we will take into account your feedback.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, everyone. Before I get started, for those of you who don't know me, I think everyone on council has seen my face one time or another before, but I am Jesse McPhail. I'm a planner with Republic Urbanism. We're an urban planning consultancy. So we've been working with the township over the last 6 or 7 months to draft your new community improvement plan. So we're here tonight to present kind of an overview of the process, as well as a summary of what that draft plan looks like. And happy to answer any questions or address any comments following the presentation. I will try to keep it brief tonight. So I will bring up my slide deck here. And I hope everybody can see that okay.
We can see it. We're good.
Okay, perfect. So as I mentioned, I'm with a firm called Republic Urbanism. We're a planning consultancy. We were working on this project with our friends at Parcel Economics as well. They helped us a lot at sort of the first phases of the project with doing a lot of the backgrounding research and work. So I did just want to mention that we did work with them, and obviously township staff played a big role in helping us move this project forward as well. But very happy to bring this in front of council and the public tonight. It's been a great project that's been moving quite smoothly, I must say, and we're happy to get this in front of you in a more or less finished state. So the agenda tonight, kind of a brief presentation. I'm going to review just a little bit about the project for those who may not be familiar in the gallery or members of the public. I'm going to go over some of the background work that went into developing the draft community improvement plan. And then the section 3 of the presentation is really going to be the kind of meat and the potatoes and the more interesting part of the presentation, where I'm going to take a little bit of a dive into what the contents of the CIP are. And then I'm going to review some of the brief feedback that was received to date, and then detail some next steps before opening the floor to any questions or comments from the gallery. In terms of some statutory notes that I'd like to get out of the way at the start here, I just wanted to note that the meeting is being held in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act. Notice of this public meeting was provided in accordance with the Planning Act, as Lindsay had mentioned. And I just wanted to note that if a person does not make oral or written submissions to the township respecting the CIP before a decision is made, their eligibility to appeal or be added as a party to a hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal may be affected. So, about the project, what's the project all about? Over the last 7 months, the township has been working on its first ever community improvement plan. And this has been with help from staff, members of council, community stakeholders, and the public. So a CIP is often used by Ontario municipalities to improve lands and buildings in specific areas of the community through a mix of financial incentives and strategic municipal projects. These tools are really important because without them, municipalities are generally prohibited from offering funding or other related supports to private entities, businesses, or property owners under the Municipal Act. And this is often referred to as bonusing. So this CIP lets a municipality have a concession in some respects with regards to those bonusing prohibitions. The draft plan will seek to promote community improvement throughout the township over the next decade. However, you know, if the 10-year mark hits and the township is still enjoying it and it's finding it still successful, some municipalities have kept their CIPs running, 10, 15, even 20 years with, some amendments here and there. So, but really we're targeting a 10-year implementation timeframe for this project. In terms of just an overview of kind of what a CIP framework involves, you generally have two groups of community participants. It's shown on the left here. So you have kind of the public sector, which would be the township, and then you have the private sector, which would be businesses, organizations, landowners. And between these two players, they're working towards some community priorities that have been identified through the backgrounding process. So that's usually through consultation with the community and stakeholders, identifying these priorities that are associated with community improvement and specific goals. And through those works and through those actions, you're working together towards a number of a vision and a set of goals that are identified typically in a CIP. So a community improvement plan really helps to organize community improvement efforts towards a common goal, just to make sure you're making most efficient use of resources and time and finances. In terms of the project timeline, it was generally broken down into 3 phases. The first phase was kind of probably the biggest phase, which involved the backgrounding and visioning, and this involved a lot of the brunt of the consultation efforts. So this included the public survey and the open house that was held in early June. And this was followed by the preparation and submission of a background report to the township. Phase 2 involved the actual drafting of the CIP. So once we had identified some strategic directions for the plan to go, we actually started drafting that. And if council remembers, we were in front of you in August to provide a bit of an update on the project and what those preliminary recommendations were looking like. And now we're finally kind of looking to wrap up the project. We're in phase 3. As you can see, we're down near the public meeting here. And this is kind of the last step before staff will be bringing forward a recommendation to council in the near future to consider adoption. So in terms of the background work, I did just want to touch on this very briefly. So in developing the township CIP, again, it's the first one for the township, and will build on the existing culture of grant programming that the township offers. So this is the first plan, but the township does offer an interesting suite of grant programs for heritage conservation and celebration, private road grants, community and cemetery grants, and the like. The CIP will not be specifically tailored to a certain area or region. It'll cover the entire township. So this was identified at the start of the project that the community and the township were looking for a tool that was the most flexible and could be applied throughout the township. So this was really echoed through the consultation that we had done with the community. In terms of this sort of the background work, again, the main foundational deliverable for the project was the background report. And this was fundamental in helping our project team and the township better understand kind of the needs and the gaps in the community in terms of what we wanted the community improvement plan to focus on. So this looked at a number of things, including existing policy. It undertook an economic and market analysis. And we looked at actually all of the communities as well as the rural area through a site visit, really to help us get a better understanding of the community and establish a direction for the plan. So this really helped us identify some emerging themes and help us hone in on some preliminary recommendations to help us shape this tool to make sure that it's context specific to the township. In terms of consultation, these activities play a super important role. As you know, us as consultants, I'm not from the township, so it's always great to lean on members of the community and members of staff and members of council who know and live and breathe the community. So we had a number of different activities scheduled for the project to help us get a better understanding and get the community involved in helping shape this plan. So these are just some of the examples here. The open house and public survey were probably some of the larger ones. With obviously we do have the statutory public meeting and commenting period on the plan itself right now. So that leads us to kind of the primary section of the presentation here, and the most interesting, I would say, is the plan overview. So we now, after 7 months, we do have a draft community improvement plan from start to finish here, and we're looking at presenting that to members of council and members of the public for feedback. And I will jump right into that. So the CIP is kind of centered around a main vision for the plan. And again, this was based on a lot of the background work and consultation done in the community. And that vision is through a combination of financial incentives and community improvement initiatives, the township will support the revitalization and enhancement of its unique and historic communities to foster conditions that encourage economic growth, beautify our core areas, build civic pride, and support a high quality of life across Leeds and the Thousand Islands. Now, to help us better focus our efforts and resources towards achieving that vision over the next 10 years, 10 different more tangible goals were identified as well, and those are contained in the CIP as well. So these are just kind of brief truncations of those goals that are a little more fleshed out in the document itself. But generally speaking, I won't read through all of them, but some of these include, things like enhancing the vitality of the township's main streets, cultivating inviting public spaces, ensuring fair allocation of efforts and resources, encouraging the growth of businesses. So these goals were really designed to help the township track progress over the next 10 years, as well as help with the review process. So for financial incentive programs that are offered under the plan, which I'll get into, these goals will help the township in terms of filtering and reviewing and improving funding and projects for that. So with that said, the plan is generally based around two key components. So these are the financial incentive programs and the municipal leadership initiatives. So there are 5 incentive programs detailed in the plan, and there are 9 municipal leadership initiatives detailed in the plan. So these will each support community improvement throughout the township over the next decade. So as mentioned, the entire township will be covered under the community improvement plan. However, eligibility for certain grants will depend on what the program is. So some are available in settlement areas only, others are available township-wide, and some are available in the rural area only. The plan itself, I won't get into it right now, but if there are questions after the presentation, by all means. But the plan does outline administrative processes and implementation strategies for the incentives and initiatives. So all that is detailed in the plan, but I won't bore anyone getting into the weeds on those right now. I do want to note just something important is that Township Council will have full discretion as to which incentive programs they're offering from year to year. So some municipalities, they may have, so for instance, we have 5 incentive programs. Council may wish to offer 2 one year or 3 the other year, or all 5 at once. That's kind of up to council and up to, what kind of budget is allocated to the CIP. And that also goes for the municipal leadership initiatives. These are not necessarily a to-do list or a specific implementation framework, but rather a strategic inspiration for projects that could potentially be pursued if if priorities are aligned with the community and the budget's there for those. And really, this document, in terms of the municipal leadership initiatives, it can be a really great support for if the township's looking for funding through provincial streams or federal streams for grants. It's good to have this document to show that that work has gone into actually developing a little bit of a strategy for some of these improvement works. So I will jump into the financial incentive programs and just provide a brief summary of each. So these are the first 3. So the first, we have a facade improvement program. And so as the name suggests, this would be looking at supporting facade improvements to buildings within the settlement areas. So these would be non-residential and mixed-use buildings. Generally speaking, these usually go towards commercial businesses and buildings that are seeing access from the public and a public use. So this would look at supporting refinishing brickwork, replacing or repairing windows, redesign of storefronts, and this could also include signage and permanent artwork, so murals, plaques, or other installments. So this grant here would be a 50% cost matching grant for eligible works that are detailed in the plan, up to a maximum amount of $5,000. So these, before I go further, all of these incentive programs would be subject to an application process that would be similar to what the township currently has with some of their other grants. So it needs to go through that application process and that review process before getting approved. The second program is the Accessibility and Code Compliance Program. So this would, again, as the name suggests, look at supporting projects that would improve accessibility to buildings or sites. So this could be, the installation or improvement of the accessibility ramps or lifts, retrofits to washrooms or other facilities, or other just general works that are aligned with improving accessibility. This would be another 50% cost matching grant up to a maximum of $5,000. And this would be available township-wide to non-residential, mixed use, and residential buildings of 6 units or more. And the third program that we have on this slide here is the Secondary Dwelling Unit Support Program. So this is looking at supporting some more diversified options for housing in the community. So this would look at supporting either the creation of a new secondary dwelling unit or the improvement of an existing dwelling unit that may not be up to code or up to safety standards. And these would be where they would be permitted in accordance with zoning and official plan policies. This would be available township-wide in an effort to help promote more alternative forms of housing. And this would, again, be another 50% cost matching grant up to a maximum of $5,000. And the final 2 incentive programs that we have are the Building Conversion and Expansion Program. So this is a grant that is considerably higher than the rest of them in terms of the amount, but it is because it is seeking to address more substantial improvements and investments to properties within the settlement areas. So this will assist with the cost of converting, expanding, renovating, or redeveloping a building to accommodate a new or expanded commercial or other non-residential use or mixed-use building. So this would be looking to seek to sort of breathe new life into some buildings that may not have had that sort of kickstart, or they've been struggling to accommodate their users. This is what that program would be looking to support. And finally, last but not least, we have the Agritourism Support Program, and this would look at supporting, generally speaking, rural economic development, agritourism type uses. So this would be looking at supporting the establishment, expansion, or improvement of agriculture related, on-farm diversified, and agritourism uses that are outside of our settlement areas. So again, that would be the rural area only. And these would be sort of, improvement projects that are similar to what you would see under the facade improvement program or the building conversion and expansion program, but just tailored for the rural area to help spread those resources around a little bit. So again, all of these programs could potentially be activated at any time by the township. Generally speaking, the plan does recommend one of two ways of going about it. There could be designated intake periods for applications for these from year to year, or they could be done on an ad hoc basis. So as they come, the township can deal with the applications. On the other hand, we have the municipal leadership initiatives. So again, it's important to note that these initiatives don't necessarily represent a to-do list or firm commitment, but rather, again, that strategic inspiration for improvement projects. So I will note that these are considerably higher level in terms of detail and implementation than the financial incentive programs. So the detail that I'm presenting here is going to reflect that. But generally speaking, there are 9 initiatives that have been identified in the plan based on the background work that was done and the consultation that was carried out. And I'll summarize those now. And again, there's a lot more information in the plan, but I'd be happy to answer any questions that may come up. So the first initiative would be to adopt a land acknowledgement and communications policy. So this was communicated to us as being a priority of the township and council. So this would be looking at developing a formal policy and guidelines for land acknowledgements and communications to be integrated into township processes and documents. And this would be looking to be developed in consultation and collaboration with the township's Indigenous neighbors and the Indigenous community in the area. There are a number of action items that are recommended for each of these municipal leadership initiatives that are detailed in the plan. So I will note that it does get into a little more detail. The second is improving public parks and water access. So this would look at contemplating coordination between CIP budgeting and community improvement efforts with the joint recreation master plan assessments that were completed in 2020. So that the township undertook that plan with the municipality of Gananoque. And that identified a lot of great projects that dovetail right in with what some of the priorities are with the CIP for improving public spaces. So this is just looking to align planning for that and ensuring that the township is coordinating those efforts. The third is supporting property standards management. So this initiative would be really looking at instilling a stronger culture of property standards management in the community, and this could be done through a cataloging of maybe challenge sites or issue sites and meeting with property owners, establishing a process for exploring community focused solutions such as the designation of a spring cleanup day or other benefits that would help people get more into the community focused participation in property standards management. The next one is Main Street revitalization. So this one's kind of self-explanatory, but this would be kind of looking at more focusing on fostering a collaborative working relationship between the township and the county to explore joint opportunities to improve the main streets. One of the primary challenges or items to tackle is the fact that there's some cross-jurisdictional authorities for the main streets in the township. So this is just looking to help coordinate those efforts and develop a better working relationship in terms of improvements and ensuring those work well together. The next one is improving wayfinding in the township. And wayfinding is generally speaking at its simplest form, signage, directions in the community, finding where things are, identifying businesses, parks, finding your way around. So this would really involve, these improvements would really involve looking at cataloging existing wayfinding elements and identifying sort of quick win improvements that can be undertaken now, as well as considering the development of a coordinated wayfinding strategy that looks to tie together all of the communities in the township. So whether it be a similar branding or coordinated branding that maintains the uniqueness of each community, but ties them together better. The next is supporting attainable and affordable housing development. So as everyone knows, this is a huge issue across Canada right now is supporting housing, and this initiative would be looking to largely coordinate with the county in identifying actions that can be undertaken, including promoting any county level programming, seeking to foster a more open dialogue with the community on housing challenges, as well as reviewing and updating the township's policy documents. So it could be an official plan, site plan, design guidelines, zoning bylaws, just making sure that those are friendly to housing development. The next would be assessing opportunities for unopened right-of-ways. So the township has an estimated 287 kilometers of unopened road allowances. This amounts to around 344 hectares of land that is covered by unopened right-of-ways. Now, it's not to say that all of these are prime for redevelopment or improvement or use as a park or water access, but it would be worth the township's while to undertake an opportunity assessment of these lands alongside the community to look at ways in which maybe these can be leveraged for linear parks or rural connections or additional water access points. So that's what that initiative involves. And last but not least, we have supporting environmental stewardship. So through this initiative, the township would be seeking to work with community stakeholders and nonprofit organizations to refine priorities and develop tailored approaches to stewardship. So this would include, consultation with conservation authorities, local organizations, members of the community who are passionate about the environment, to look at solutions and improving how the township manages and conserves the natural environment. And this could look at, reviewing existing studies and literature in the community, policy documents, and identifying opportunities for improving on gaps that may exist. And, that was not the last one. Finally, we do have exploring opportunities for the reuse or redevelopment of Steely's Bay Fire Hall. So we did learn throughout the development of this plan that the Steely's Bay Fire Hall is currently to be relocated, or the fire hall activities in any case are to be relocated to a new fire hall, which may present a great opportunity in the future for adaptive reuse or redevelopment of this site, given it is around 2,800 square meters, which is quite sizable for an urban lot. So this initiative would potentially look at, engaging with the community, real estate or market experts, and members of council and staff to develop alternatives or options for the site in the future, and look at redeveloping that. So that's what that initiative would focus on. And again, each of these, this one in particular, would likely require some more legwork in terms of developing terms of reference and an appropriate approach to rolling these initiatives out as the plan is implemented. So in terms of the kind of crux of the plan and kind of the meat and the potatoes of the plan, as I mentioned, it really centers around the incentives and the initiatives. That being said, there is a lot more to it. So I would invite everyone in attendance today to crack it open and take a look and explore it. And if there are any questions at all, feel free to reach out. In terms of the circulation period for the ahead of this public meeting, Lindsay had mentioned that we did receive some feedback to date. Members of council do have this available to them in their package, I believe. But just to summarize some of the feedback, it's all been generally positive. And I'll just review that right now. So Douglas and Blue Macintosh have expressed strong support for Municipal Leadership Initiative 5.9, supporting environmental stewardship. And they've asked that council consider including a fourth action item within this initiative to establish a volunteer environmental advisory committee. Enbridge had submitted recommendations related to the identification of their pipeline infrastructure in the community. By our review of this letter, we do believe that this was likely more intended for a document that would be related to something more aligned with a zoning bylaw or an official plan, as a CIP doesn't really regulate development in the way that those documents do. But it was noted. The Ministry of Transportation generally advised of their development regulations and influence areas that need to be considered as part of the land use planning process, and Bell Canada advised of no specific comments or concerns related to the CIP. In terms of the approval process, staff have been in contact with the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, who advised that comments will be provided following the public meeting ahead of council's decision. So they did want to have this presented at the public meeting and have the plan in a finalized state before they reviewed and provided their comments. In terms of next steps, the approval process. Following this public meeting, council will consider all feedback and comments received to date and decide on whether to adopt the plan as is with revisions or defer a decision. And a council decision is anticipated for January 2024. That being said, that date is to be decided. Per the requirements of the Planning Act, adoption of the plan will be by way of bylaw, and as such, council's decision may be appealed in accordance with Section 17 of the Planning Act. If no appeals are received within 20 days following a decision, the plan will come into effect with grant availability and budget determined by the township. So if and when the plan is adopted, council would go through the normal budgeting process like they would with any other item from year to year in respect of the community improvement plan. And with that said, I want to thank everybody for bearing with me here. It's a bit of a lengthy presentation, but happy to share that with you. And I would pass it back to the chair. And if there are any questions or comments or anything like that, I'd be happy to oblige.
Thank you so much for your presentation. So just as a note, I noticed that a number of individuals were writing feverishly while you were doing your presentation. Copy of the presentation is online and is available to anybody who wishes to download it. If you're looking for the slide deck, it's on the under the public meeting notice for December 4th. So I will entertain comments or questions from council members and then go to the gallery after that. So I have Councillor Gorell and then Councillor Jameson. Did you have your hand up? No? Okay. Councillor Gorell, ahead.
Thank you. And to you, your worship, I want to keep it brief because we have a lot of people in the audience and we seem to be on some time constraints. Reading the CIP, I get confused somewhat between financial incentives and the concept of large capital budget items. And I think that it's easy to be misdirected between the two. So my question would be, can we provide clarity and some guardrails between financial incentives, which seem fairly easy to understand? They're limited budgets, and we have 5 programs currently in the township. If you add them up, probably 125,000 odd. Because it will take a budget to support this. But I think there are people in the audience tonight that may be thinking capital budget programs, which are not, in my estimation, a part of the CIP. And I think that was expressed by myself and the planning department some months ago when this first came before us. They're very different things. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
To the point that you're trying to make, that when you're talking about road work, sidewalks, signage, like big signage, road signage, that sort of thing, those are considered capital projects, and through our minimum maintenance standards and ongoing capital projects. This is strictly for the betterment of the settlement areas as well as the rural areas, the agritourism, that sort of thing. So it is limited. The recommendations are being limited to the programs that have been presented this evening. So any of those larger capital projects are considered outside of that and on a regular basis for minimum standard of services that we provide. So just to
And I
expand.
might add, through the adopted asset management plan, which
Correct.
this council had, through with the help of a wonderful staff, had
Mhm.
put together.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions from council? Go ahead, Councillor Maybe.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you. A couple of points that I found on the, while I was reading through it. One was the secondary dwelling and how much, and what I had written down and what it was on the slide deck today was a little different, and that's fine. But on 5.8, talked about the access and upgrade road allowances. I know that there has been some questions brought to us before about some road allowances and opening them up. But that would be constrained to how much construction would be required to actually make that work. So I don't see, and as alluded to during the briefing, that not all roads would be acceptable to be opened either. So just want to mention that one because it did come up at the very first term of our seating here. So just some guidance on some of those things to make sure that we just aren't going to open everything up. Thank you.
Go ahead, Madam Planner.
Thank you. Through you. If I could just add some clarity with respect to the review of unopened road allowances, the intent of that is not to be opening road allowances and building roads. The intent of that was to review the unopened road allowances that the municipality owns to look at options for trail networks or outdoor passive or active recreational uses. So it's not to be building roads. It was simply to review the lands that we own to see what other uses could potentially be assigned to them.
Okay, I have Councillor Jameson, then Councillor Lackey.
My takeaway from this, just to put it on the table, is less about some of the detail and more about the fact that we basically consolidating all the things that have been talked about all over the place for many years. You had heritage over here, talked about trails over there, village improvements here, peer group there. So whether the details are pursued in one way or the other, to me, I was pleased to see that it's now actually got a shape and a program within which we can start to see what we can prioritize as opposed to being all over the place. So that's what I appreciate about the SIP in this particular juncture. Thank you.
No problem. Councillor Lackey.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you, just a quick inquiry on the incentive programs and the applications and how often can you apply? Is it something you can apply for every year if you have a project, or are we bound? Can we do two? Like, how often can people come to us?
I don't know if that's a consultant answer or a planner answer. I've got a planner with her hand up, so.
Okay, I'll let her go ahead then,
Okay.
and I can add in anything if needed.
Okay, go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you. Through you. I believe the implementation section of the document indicates that it's annually. However, depending on budget and allocation, that's something that can be refined through our implementation of the plan.
Okay. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Fody.
Excuse me. Thank you, Your Worship, through you. Jesse, I want to thank you. In only 7 months, you've brought a lot of information to where we stand here tonight. I have a lot of questions, much like my colleagues, I'm sure, but I want to dwell on the title you have here, Community Improvement Plan. I'd like to hear what the public has to say on this. Thank you.
Okay. So if there's no other comments or questions, we will go slightly over time to deal with comments or questions. So when you put your hand up, I'll acknowledge you, you come forward, and then you sit in front of the computer screen with the microphone, and then please state your name and where you live. So the lady in the front row, please come forward. And the other thing, is the microphone on? Just touch the button on the bottom there. There we go. This is
Catherine McGregor,
right.
Mayor, Deputy Mayor, councillors and staff. Thank you all for the work you do on behalf of all the residents of our township. For the past 49 and a half years, my residence has been in Lyndhurst. As well, I am the owner of an accessible commercial building where I am a self-employed small business owner. This CIP report is large and comprehensive. After reading it, I chose to be present this evening to give a voice to those with mobility and physical accessibility needs. I urge council to not forget these residents of our township, as well as future residents and visitors, and to therefore simply allocate the recommendations in the plan to one of two columns, needs and wants, and to fulfill the needs before the wants. Given that the Ontario Accessibility Act was passed in 2005 with a very generous compliance window extended 20 years to 2025, it's extremely disheartening to many that next month brings us to 2024, and there are so many locations in our township that remain inaccessible. I suggest that council focus on a collaborative effort amongst community partners and accessibility design advisors to support modifications in multiple locations simultaneously. I also suggest that council consider the minor variance financial obstacle that the majority of businesses on the main streets of our villages will encounter due to lack of sufficient setback available to their older buildings. Since none of you were on council when I renovated my building in the year 2000, I share with you that I was charged $750 for a minor variance simply to provide an accessible wheelchair ramp and an automatic door. I'm sure that fee has increased substantially in the last 23 years and should be reconsidered for structural improvements to increase accessibility. Perhaps if council chooses to discuss my suggestions, they may decide that an accessibility committee could be struck to initiate the collaboration. I'd be willing to work with others on such a committee. Wouldn't it be wonderful if our township became known as not just the nicest one, but also the most accessible one? Thank you.
Thank you very much for that valuable feedback. I might ask Ms. McGregor if you could email that to our planning so they'll add it into the package. So, and anybody else want to? So I have two hands up at the back, so please come ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you. I'd like to second the previous speaker's comments, first of all, and also appreciation for all the work that has gone into this plan. I think it's a tremendous plan. It's much simpler than all the ones that were compared to other municipalities. It's much more straightforward. And based on the survey that was done last spring and the results of that, I think it's very true to the feedback that was received from the community. So I really commend both the designers and you folks for undertaking this in the way that it's come to it's come to this far. My concern, I guess, with it is that based on the reserve set aside at the year-end statements last year, there was $192,000 in budgeted for this. And I believe $35,000 has been spent this last year, I believe probably for this plan and associated activities, which leaves a little over $150,000 for the plan from this reserve. My concern is that there is a lot of work involved for the staff person that's going to be hired to do this, and probably overlap with current staff as well, with follow-up inspections and reports and analysis of work completed and so on. That's a lot of work, and my concern is once a person's been hired as the person that implement this plan and other staff expenses are taken into account, that 157 remaining roughly, if that's accurate. You could confirm that for me if needed. That doesn't go very far. And I think this plan covers so many things that different parts of the community has been asking for. I'm the editor of the upcoming Sealy's Bay newsletter in area. And certainly I've been involved with lots of conversations, Angela and others with through Sabir and so on. And that's why I feel this is a really tremendous plan. I would recommend or suggest or hope that we would look at increasing the size of the funds given, because you get a couple of $15,000 grants for commercial renovation expansion. And all of a sudden, what's left of 157 minus a full-time staff person, minus other staff involvement, which should come, I would think, out of this, you're not left with very much money. So I would hope that that perhaps from the reserve for special projects, which I believe as of the end of last year was about $700,000, that we could top up this 157, assuming that that is accurate, with at least another 100,000 or 150,000 to really make this do something significant. Because if we're going to spend all this time on it, and the community is spending a lot of time through the application process, we need to have an impact. And if we only do a few here and a few there, it's going to look a little bit more like, you know, a few insiders get what they want type of thing. And I don't think that's what any of us want. I think it's a great plan, and I just hope that we can find additional monies. The only other comment I would make is, as a former owner landlord, the $5,000 limit on expansion for second suites, the $5,000 doesn't go very far for something like that. And we have almost 400 renters in our municipality. And I know from personal contact with many of them, well, some of them, not many of them, some of them, that their facilities are lacking. And perhaps if we increase that to 10,000 maximum per grant at the 50% funding level, and let owners, landlords know that we will be doing more inspections to get things up to standards for safety for people living in those units. I think those two things, carrot and a little bit of a warning of a stick, might go a long way to get the kind of results that I think township staff would like to see. Those are my comments, and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Mr. Page, want to come forward? I see your hand, so I'll recognize you next.
Hi, I'm Jason Page. Thank you, councilors, for listening to what I have to say, Mayor and councilors. I'd like to speak a bit to Ms. McGregor's points on accessibility. Accessibility is a big thing for community. I look around the room and most of us have gray or white hair and some of us lacking it. And I see our community aging more and more. And we have an obligation to prepare ourselves for that in the future. We have some buildings who've managed to do upgrades, put ramps in and things like that, but we don't even have access to them from the sidewalks themselves, don't have proper ramping to the sidewalk. So I think there needs to be a component in there that's on the side of the township onus as well. So if a owner puts in a ramp on their business, it's also the township's responsibility to make sure that the ramping kind of is accessible in the first place. Second, we talk about you can't use for professional fees. I have a concern with this. Professional fees for putting in a ramp or accessibility can be quite high. Even just the township fees, as talked to by Ms. McGregor, are quite high for building. And so I think waiving those fees when doing accessibility would be a wise thing to do, particularly when we're talking about the needs for some in housing to add accessibility. And so I would like to see that added. Next, also, when it comes to the professional fees, those professional fees can be quite high, even just at looking at engineering. If you want to get a ramp put in, you have to get engineering drawings. That's going to be required. And those fees can be $4,000 or $5,000 alone. So I think that an increase there would make sense and go a long way. The next is the portion on roadway allowance. For those who've purchased properties that are beside these areas of roadway allowance, they may have purchased those properties with the hope that one day a road would be added and therefore they could access the back or another portion of the property would not normally be accessible. And so what kind of recourse or how will they be included in the decision to change one of those or look at that space as a park as opposed to a road as maybe they had thought the intention was? And those are all my points at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir, Please come forward.
My name is Mike Bell, and I'm the co-president of Tierra, the Thousand Islands Alliance for River Advocates. Despite my appearance, I'm not here to talk about accessibility issues. Our group wants to congratulate TLTI for this entire effort. I think it has great potential, and we would like to offer our expertise and resources as we're able, especially in alignment with environmental stewardship. We can provide expertise and instruction and education, we hope, and particularly related to McIntosh's suggestion of establishing an environmental advisory committee. This would help steer us in the right direction for responsible decisions that will have greater benefit in terms of ecotourism, especially, which is really the lifeblood of our economy. So congratulations, and you do have our full support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. Any other comments or questions? The gentleman in the back, please come forward. Go ahead.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. My name is Mark Letourneau. I'm the property owner of 1084 Prince Street. I'm here today in capacity as a private property owner. Again, I want to echo many of the comments that have already been said. I think this is a great initiative. I think there's some really important aspects to this plan that are needed within this community. I do have one particular question about one of the objectives. And the second objective identified was to improve the condition of heritage properties and increase the number of designated properties. One of my questions, and this is something for staff and the consultant perhaps to take away, is how are heritage properties being defined? If you are only referring to the designated properties under the Heritage Act, I would actually suggest that many of these properties are going to be eligible for this program. Many of them are private homes. Even my commercial property, I don't think actually in reading this, it would be eligible. So if the effort is to try and promote, I think there might need to be some clarity on how the CIP will actually support the protection of heritage properties. When we look at many of these communities, the character isn't just the private businesses, it's also the private homes on the streetscapes. So, what initiatives will really support not only the commercial properties, but the residential properties, which often are immediately adjacent. The only other thing that I would ask for a bit of clarity after reading the report would be is how are the existing grants going to intersect with the proposed grants and funding here? I know for some of the grants existing within the municipality, if you receive one, you become ineligible for another one. So it would be helpful to have some clarity on how these different grants work together. And again, to echo some of the comments, I would also suggest that some of the numbers, particularly for some of the facade improvements, might actually be a little low. As someone who's been spending a lot of money on my own property, I can attest, trying to get trades, trying to get some of the people to do this work is very, very difficult and in many cases extremely costly. And those are the comments that I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? I have two. I'll take the two hands that just came up, the lady in the green, if you want to come forward, and then the gentleman behind, and then we'll wrap this portion of the meeting up. Please note that if we're unable to recognize you to make comments from the floor this evening, any sort of feedback that you can provide to our planning staff and our consultant who are on the line tonight. The contact information is available, I believe, on the slide deck as well. Please feel free to email in any questions or comments that can form part of the next phase coming to council. Thank you. Please go ahead.
Thanks very much, Your Worship, Deputy Mayor and councillors. And my name is Colette Kenny, And I'd like to first thank Lindsay Lambert for her assistance in bringing me up to speed on trying to understand what a CIP is and its role. And I wanted to come today to speak on a couple of points. I've been passionate for working with vulnerable citizens for decades, doing outreach with the homeless in Toronto and also with Martha's Table in Kingston. And with what I feel is a housing crisis and such difficulty for our citizens to find rentals, I'm just asking council to perhaps consider, could affordable housing be considered more prominently in the plan? And I agree wholeheartedly with the previous speaker. One way to do this would be to increase the secondary dwelling grant. I also wondered about the dwelling conversion grant. I know there are a number of people living in prior storefronts that perhaps those grants could be used to make them more serviceable or more comfortable to the residents. And I feel that affordable housing has a strong connection to your pre-existing pillars in your plan. And it's also recognized to be an action item for municipal leadership. So I'm just wondering if there are opportunities to move that to the foreground for our vulnerable citizens. My second point is related to environmental stewardship. And as some of you know, I've built a small footprint eco cabin in the township. That's a passive solar cabin. I would love to be on a committee regarding environmental stewardship or leadership in the township. So I would like to second that idea to bring that forward. I know that's something that was quite prominent of what the local people were interested in too. And I had another idea regarding that one of the grants is an agri-tourism grant. And I wondered if council might consider opening that up or making it agri or ecotourism, so that if there are business leaders who would like to show the beauty of nature and how they are protecting it, if there are innovators in gardening and eco organic farming techniques, that maybe they could qualify for that under ecotourism. So that's another opportunity to maybe consider that grant a little bit more widely and use the overlap with the environmental stewardship. And that's everything. And thanks so much for the opportunity to share some of my passions. And thanks for the plan. I think it represents a real opportunity for us to come together and really reflect on what it means to improve this community that we all love. So thank you.
And our last speaker, the gentleman in the gray.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I just have a few comments. First of all, really nice to see this moving forward. Township really needs it, and a lot of people are excited about it and in support of it, and we are as well. So my name is Dan Fouts, and I live here in the village of Lansdowne. I just have one point, and then I have one question. First point was basically brought up by this gentleman back here. Regarding including residential properties and heritage properties in the program. And I just urge the township to consider any avenues that will enable us to make that happen. As we all know, we drive through the township and all the pretty countryside, but it's the core areas that are mentioned in the CIP that I think are the face of the township. You know, that's what people think about. They think about Lyndhurst and Sealy's Bay and Lansdowne. So anything we can do to improve the facade within the core settlement areas should be considered. And along those lines, the second one is just a question regarding the Property Standards Management Initiative. And how does that integrate with the existing bylaws? And then, you know, what is the like, what does the implementation of that look like? And I don't, I'm not looking for an answer right now. I'm just raising that question, and it's probably a question for the consultant. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you for all the individuals that chose to get up and speak. And I apologize that if there were more, we do have a committee of the whole meeting immediately after this. So, but like I said, if you have any comments or questions that weren't covered this evening, we would love to hear from you. Please reach out to Lindsay Lambert or Marnie Venditti or our lovely consultant, Jesse McPhail, who's worked so hard on this plan. And just to echo some of the comments of the councillors this evening, this has been a long time coming, and it is nice to see it all wrapped up into one package. Very valuable feedback here today, which the planners will take back with the consultant to the point of, multiple grants being available here in the township and through the counties, and what that overlap might look like, as well as making sure that the suggestion for ecotourism as well as agritourism is a very valid comment as well. So lots of great feedback, and thank you very much. So with that, we will move to adjournment of the public meeting, and the motion comes forward from Councillor Jameson and seconded by Councillor Maybe that the public meeting adjourn. All those in favor? All those opposed? And we're carried.